Good morning, everyone. We would like first to thank the IADA committee for the organization of this symposium and for this opportunity to share our work. So we will present the treatment of 2 volumes of botanical drawing for digitization. And in our presentation, we will question what is conservation for digitization nowadays and how the use of hydrogels has increased since the last 15 years. So we worked on 2 exceptional objects of historic and aesthetic value and of major interest for the history of botanical studies in Europe. They hold 420 watercolors from the 16th century, which are in very good condition. The drawings measure approximately 30 by 20 centimeters, and the highest drawings reach 50 centimeters. They were made with graphite, watercolors, and sometimes hydrogel ink and green copper pigments. And you can see there are also some annotations in hydrogel ink. And the drawings were pasted on a thin lead paper with animal glue. You can see that some drawings were larger than the pages, and they were sticking out of the book when they were unfolded. So the handling provoked abrasions, losses of the paint, but also creases, tears, and tension into the paper. And so in order to assure the long-time preservation, 24 items were dismounted to be stored flat. And the ethical issues of the decision will be discussed later. We had only 2 months to stabilize the volumes and dismount the drawing before digitization, so it was pretty tight, and it influenced our treatment choices. So to fit the theme of this conference, we can say that this treatment raised 2 issues. So what conservation for digitization means nowadays, so has it evolved in the last 10 years? The guideline has always been to find a balance between safe handling, legibility, and minimal intervention. But we wondered if the technology and the communication between the different stakeholders had changed and if it could have an impact on our treatment choices. And next, what do we know now about hydrogels, which are used in paper conservation since the years 2010s? And could they be used to dismount our drawings? So very quickly, I will talk about the history of the drawings and the structure of the books. So these 420 botanical drawings were collected by Jacques Daléchamps, a humanist doctor who lived in Lyon between 1560 and 1580. They were drawn by many different botanists, and they come from France, Spain, but also Germany and Switzerland. And the hands of famous botanists like Francesc Micó can be identified, and you can see the handwritings visible next of the drawings, which are always different. And these drawings were used as models for the woodblock printed edition of Historia Generalis Plantarum, which was published in 1586, and which counts more than 2,000 woodblocks. Their history is still mysterious. They probably arrived in the collection of Gaston d'Orléans, son of King Henry IV, during the 17th century in the form of flying leaves. And they joined the collection of the Bibliothèque Royale in the 18th century, where they were bound. So it was made in the French National Library. So despite the quality of the drawings and their prestigious provenance, the binding is very simple. It is a reverse skein, probably sheep or goat leather, and a single gold tool line is applied on the covers. So the drawings were still in form of fly leaves, and so they were gathered by 8. And we observed 2 types of stitching. Most of the time it was a stab stitch that was used, that you can observe on the left, but also an overedge stitch was used along the left side for certain gatherings. The bindings were in bad condition due to inappropriate condition of storage. Because of the tears of the joints and the bad state of the paper labels, the books could not be safely handled for digitization, and a treatment was needed. So in the first part of our talk, my colleague Roxanne will present what issues are raised by digitization and which specific treatment were realized.
So, hello everyone. The treatments of both albums reflected a good scale between the two, the two main demands of digitization, stabilizing and restoring the legibility, which do not go naturally hand in hand. For several years now, articles have been published highlighting the limitations of digitization as a means of preserving cultural heritage. This phenomenon can be commonly referred as the French expression un serpent qui se mord la queue, or in a more common way, a vicious circle between conservation and transmission. As we all know, digitization entails risks. To obtain a visual reproduction that is as faithful as possible to the original, it might require excessive handling and opening angle, which can damage the serine structure and break the book's spine. It was particularly so in the case of the volumes, where some drawings were pasted quite close to the sewing and required a 180-degree opening angle to get the entire page legible. As an example, this is a page of the second volume after digitization, accessible on the Gallica online digital library. As you can see, as you can see there, the drawing has been manually folded to access the writing on the verso, and creating a soft but new fold, even with leading-edge imaging technology, consisted in applying a scanning glass plate on the pages with controlled pressure. Here, the treatment issue has been to facilitate manipulation for the photographer while keeping an access on the drawing verso. From the beginning, the aim of treatment was to respect the volume's historical value and use, and to keep the material unity of the collection, instead of removing all drawings from the binding and keeping them all flat. Nevertheless, exceptions were made for the largest sizes drawing, which didn't fit initially in the volumes and had been forced into from the beginning by folding them, sometimes in quite extreme ways, provoking folds and loss of pigments, as you can see there. Most of the large-sized drawings were pasted on blank pages, while some others were pasted with drawings on the back of the page. First option would have been to remove all the large-sized drawings from the recto to preserve the folio, with or without a verso. This option, although more ethical, posed a much greater risk to the preservation of the drawing area and the paper, potentially causing delamination and pigment loss. As our priority was to preserve the material integrity of the drawings, rather than the folio, a decision was taken to cut the blank page from the book and sacrificed it to have an easier access for removing treatment at the verso. We kept the double-sided drawings for the end as a final challenge, giving us time to do some research and to make tests. As we will present to you later, we find what we consider to be the best protocol and assures safety of the drawings while preserving the integrity of the folio with the verso, even if it extends the treatment process. It's always a balance between determining what is best for the artwork and accommodating the institution's schedule, a crucial consideration given that digitization at the French National Library is meticulously planned. If we didn't achieve a safe solution, these drawings would probably have remained stabilized in the binding. Before the dismounting drawings treatment, we managed to stabilize active damage to the bindings and the text block first, and then improved legibility of the text and small-size drawings. Dry surface cleaning to remove dust and dirt has been the first treatment, using latex, polyvinyl, and polyurethane erasers. Special attention was paid to green copper pigments, which used to become powdery by excessive handling. The lower corners and edges, severely weakened by handled, were consolidated using Japanese paper and wet starch paste. The bindings required more extensive treatment due to the significant tension and stress on the torn leather joints made of low-quality leather. In addition to consolidation with Japanese paper and wet starch paste, the joint between the spine and the boards was reinforced with twisted strips of Japanese paper inserted inside the caps. Finally, the labels, made of paper and containing iron gel ink, showed signs of advanced degradation. Treatment consisted of removing the title pieces by facing them with Cluselge in ethanol and backing them with a 19-gram Kozo Japanese paper to create a secondary structural support. It's been replaced in situ with Cluselge in ethanol and toned with watercolour. In our view, these interventions represent a balanced approach between minimal intervention and safe handling. Treatments of small-size drawings consisted in stabilizing them to avoid excessive handling damage and preserve the verso access. In order to restore legibility, the pages were flattened using ethanol and a heated spatula, while the inscriptions written with iron gel ink have been consolidated with Japanese paper and Cluselge. Some of the drawings have been pasted very close to the spine and suffer from this state by being torn and folded. To prevent further friction and preserve this flattened state, Japanese paper corners were used to secure the upper edge and hold the drawing in place. During imaging, the drawing can be released to photograph the reverse. It should be as instinctive and flexible as possible in order to be handled easily by several non-professional conservator holders. Fly leaves are added in order to replace the missing pages and to maintain a coherence in pagination. Specific information about the dismounted drawing can be then added, even a picture representing it, in order to keep it as a coherent whole, even if some of them have been flattened on the side. This decision belongs to the curator. To conclude this first part, we observed that conservators only assist photographers in very specific cases, as restoration and digitization are usually separate processes. However, growing concerns about digitization's impact on preservation suggest closer collaboration might be needed. This could include sharing guidelines and training by writing safety recommendations directly from one session to the other and reducing the number of interlocutors.
So, as we mentioned before, 24 drawings had to be dismounted. And so, determine the method of detaching the drawings, we had a close look at the area of glue. So you can see the red squares that show the areas. So sometimes it was large strips on one edge, sometimes it was over the 4 edges. It was pretty irregular, sometimes it was even in the middle of the leaf. So that's why we also prefer to trim the page than try to cut around the glued areas. And we had also a closer look at what was on over the glue. So we found the presence of watercolors, hydrogel ink, and sometimes green copper pigments. So that way we really had to adapt our method. And in the end, only 5 drawings had a verso and had to be dismantled in situ, and 19 were without a verso and could be trimmed. So the thick animal glue was identified by its tackiness, color, and smell, and it had to be reactivated by water. But as we saw yesterday, liquid water is a high risk for hydrogel ink, as it can move the free ions into the paper, and it also was a risk for the watercolors. And so we decided to use hydrogels because they allow to control the quantity of moisture, its penetration into the paper, and the time of contact. Okay, into the object. Sorry. The use of gel has expanded since the last 10 years, and their classification has become more dense and complex. As a quick reminder, hydrogels can be defined as three-dimensional material with a solid structure holding a liquid. And these polymers can retain a large quantity of water, and they differ from organogels, which can hold inorganic solvents. And most of the hydrogels used in paper conservation are natural polymers like agar or gellan, which are polysaccharides. So studies have shown that they can leave small residues into the paper, but because they are natural polymers, they should age in a compatible way because they are very close to cellulose. But we wondered if the amount of water that they release was a danger for hydrogel ink and the green copper pigments. We had a look at different publications, and we found that several conservators tried to remove or deactivate the iron ions with agar or gellan gum mixed with chelators. The studies even show that agar or gellan without any chelator tend to remove some free ions from the object because of the porous structure of the gel. But we decided to make a very simple test before applying the hydrogels to our drawings. And so we just used some hydrogels on the Dutch mending tests and observed their effects. So we tested gellan gum at 3%, lapunite at 4%, and Nevek. For those who are not familiar, Nevek is an already made form of agar mixed with ethanol or isopropanol, and has been successfully used in book conservation, but also painting, metal, and stone conservation. And so we observed that the first sign of pink halo appeared after 90 seconds of application, and it was very visible after 3 minutes. The results was quite similar for the free gels. However, the result of Nevek cannot really be taken into consideration because it contains the solvent which interferes with the bathyphenol. And we also tried to apply the gellan gel through a paper carrier, and the result was really good. You can see after 10 minutes of application that no pink halo appeared at all. So we decided to use the gellan gum for the drawings dismounted by the verso. And so the gellan gum 3% was applied directly on the paper residues and on the glue. It was left for 30-45 seconds with the purpose on top to slow water evaporation and get an even pressure. It was still quite a time-consuming treatment. For example, it took me 2 days to treat this drawing. And after treatment, we could use the bathyphenol paper to control if there was any migration of the ions, and there was no pink on our test. So we think like our treatment was safe, but we could not apply gellan gum on the recto even with a carrier because it created cockling. And so we tried Nevek, and it was successful.
So, in the case, as was said, In the case of large-size drawings, with drawings on the back of the page, the challenge was to find a way to access the glued area from the back, rather than the front, by applying the gel. Nevek gel was applied to an intermediary strip of 15 grams Japanese koso paper to facilitate handling and prevent any residue from remaining on the surface of a drawing. A mylar polyester film is then placed over the gel to reduce rapid solvent evaporation and allow better diffusion. This slow and controlled humidification method enables the adhesive to be reactivated without damaging the drawing. Each strip of gel do not exceed 2 centimeters in width and is adjusted in length according to the glued surface area. Work proceeds from the outer edge towards the inner edge, allowing a greater working range and easier handling of the detached portion of the drawing. Watercolor lines are examined before and after treatment under a binocular loupe and racking light. The results are very positive. Once evaporated, the product does not create halos or leave any visible residue. Only a slight difference in the texture of the paper is observable, but as this area was pasted on the page before, the surface texture was already changed from the original. The tones of the paper and the drawing remain unchanged. After dismounting treatment, sheets are relaxed in a humidification chamber, less than 80% of humidity, then pressed for a week under an hydraulic press before inlay mounting in conservation paper mounting. To conclude, even if the treatment was successful, more studies would be necessary to evaluate the impact of hydrogels on iron gelling and water-soluble media like watercolors. We found relevant to present you today this time-limited treatment and the resulting adaptation options. Our experience of collaboration with the digitisation department at the French National Library shows that more communication would be needed, as our initial schedule has completely changed. Instead of a digitization in October 2024, the volumes were photographed in March 2025, and the images has been available on Gallica only last week. Finally, we would like to question the future of our profession. Scientific research are always more and more present in our field. Is it going to change the required skills of a conservator? There is now a real development and interest about microgels and interpenetrating polymer networks, but are there enough studies on the application in the field of conservation? And how much time do we need before safely using them in our daily practice? We would like to express again our warmest thanks to the organizers of this conference, and thank you all for your kind attention. And as I have the chance to get the final word of this presentation, I would like to thank my amazing colleague and friend Oa for all her research and for being the best workshop partner.